I was chatting around again to your
Our viewers, welcome to TV Wakwetu. This Monday segment on TV Wakwetu is called Percy's One-on-One with Dr. Kasonso. My name is Patrick Chilufya. I'm just covering Percy, who is not available today, and I'm your co-host. I'm your host, and my co-host is Dr. Barbara Chanda. Welcome once again to TV Wakwetu, this Monday segment. The current issues on business and finance with focus on Zambia. At the close of business today, US dollar to kwacha was buying at 17 kwacha and 12 ngwe, selling at 17 kwacha and 17 ngwe. The British pound was buying at 23 kwacha and 47 ngwe and selling at 23 kwacha and 54 ngwe. The euro was buying at 19 kwacha and 59 and selling at 19 kwacha 65. The South African rand was buying at 1 kwacha and 11 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha and 12 ngwe. Although there was a slight depreciation from the rates at the end of the day, the kwacha continues to hold relatively strong against all major currencies. My program partner today is Dr. Kasonso. Dr. Kasonso, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick, and it's a pleasure to interview with you and interact with both of you and Dr. Chanda. I am pleased to be here tonight.
Dr. Chanda, welcome back. Welcome to the program. You can introduce yourself to the viewers.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and good evening, Professor Kasonso.
Thank you. Good evening.
As always, my name is Dr. Barbara Chanda. If you're comfortable, you can call me Barbara, whichever you like. But I'm Dr. Barbara Chanda, like we do all the time. Join the family, give us some stars, share the page if you can. If you can't, share it to your enemy. You never know, everybody has to watch it. And then if you're on YouTube, click the likes, share the button as well. And then you can become part of the family. By supporting the group, you pay maybe an equivalent of $4 or something like that, that just about the cost of a coffee, and just join the show. If you don't want to join the show, you can at least be part of the group and be part of the Bakwetu family. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kasonso. Thank you so much, Barbara. Our viewers, today, this is the fourth broadcast of Percy One-on-One with Dr. Kasonso. Today, we're going to talk about economic development, and we also talk about the newly launched economic and financial crimes court in Zambia. So since myself and Dr. Barbara, we're covering Percy, we're going to rotate on asking questions to Dr. Kasonso. So I'll be the first person to ask Dr. Kasonso the question. Dr. Kasonso.
Yes, sir.
The term economic development means so many different things to the people in Zambia, especially a layman, somebody in Chiwempala, in Kamitondo, in Chimwemwe, in Usakile. What is your take? What constitutes economic development? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. We have to go a little bit historic in the study of business and economics or finance. Before the year 1960, economic development, the term economic development was used in synonymous with westernization, urbanization, and industrialization. So in those days, most scholars and people, what they called economic development is if you build so many industries, you build so many buildings, you construct the highway. Like in the United States, we have more than 267,000 miles of the highway. When they did that, that was called economic development because it was before 1960. They did that in 1929. And when industrialization came, building products and commercializing and industrializing, that was called economic development. Yeah, but after 1960, there has been efforts in the academic world trying to pin down exactly what economic development is. So economic development is any intervention aiming at improving the well-being of people. Economic development is any intervention aiming at improving the well-being of people. Some scholars recently say that it's a process of creating and utilizing physical, human, financial, social assets to generate improved and broadly shared economic well-being and quality of life in a community or region. And others added that we can distinguish economic development from economic growth in that economic development is broadly based and sustainable increase in the overall standards of living for individuals within a community. Yeah, so I lived in California for several years. So I used to fraternize with the California Association of Local Development. And this is what they said about economic development. They said economic development is a creation of wealth from which community benefits are realized. It is more than a jobs program. It's an investment in growing your economy and enhancing the prosperity and quality of life for all residents. Now, let's summarize this and let's make sure that they can understand what we're talking about. The gist of all these definitions is that economic development ni fiancé fichi topepekeri abantu pakuba timikalire abantu iwameko ibeko bwino so fiancé fetule chita okweba ati pamikalire abantu ibeko bwino nokuya pantanshi. So economic development is a complex and multi-dimensional improvement in the welfare of people in a country, in a nation. So the features of economic development are 9. Number 1, literacy rates. Abantu balisambirira na mutabasambirira. Nga balisambirira nishina mkwata kuka component kamu aka economic development. Infrastructure. Infrastructure. Do you have the infrastructure to support the people's way of life? If you have, then they have some component of economic development. Internet access is the adequate number of people in the population accessing internet. If you have, then you have some component of economic development. And then academic levels. To what level are people educated? Standards of living. Abantu bale kalashani mayanda. Bale lalinsala, bale ilia, bale kwatenda mashakutira marenti, bale shita mayanda, their children. Is there upward mobility in their way of living? Bale fola, is the standard of living. If the standard of living of people is healthy, or the majority of the people are having a healthy standard of living, then you have some form of economic development. And here is the one that you didn't expect. Life expectancy. Abantunga bale kota. Nishita mkwata kwa economic development. Abantunga bale fava iche. Nishita mkwete economic development. And then there is a component where the population is shifting from farming to industry and then to services. And then the 8th one is access to decent housing. Abantu mayanda bale kalashana, mshabale kala mumitanda, mshabale kala matente, mshabale kala mayanda ayari decent. That is also a component of economic development. And finally, economic development is about access to good quality health care. And that is, so you can see that in the 21st century, the definition of economic development is very complex and multidimensional, but it has only one goal: the improvement in the welfare of people in the nation.
Dr. Kasonso, that was fantastic explanation on economic development. Dr. Barbara, can you please ask Dr. Kasonso if you've got a question? The next question.
Dr. Barbara, you're on mute. You have to.
Dr. Barbara, you're on mute.
Oh, so sorry. I was saying that was absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed when you narrate down for that group D, because you have to.
Group D. So
you never know. You never know. So how do we measure the economic development in Zambia? From what you've said, now how do we measure it? Because investigating what you're talking about, I've seen a measurement now together with the ranking, GDP, shani. So to narrow it down in your, as a professor, number, how do we narrow it down? How do we measure it in Zambia, and what's the ranking?
Dr. Bab, measurement economic development, there are various ways to measure economic development depending on your objectives. But the most common measure is what we call the HDI. The HDI is the Human Development Index. And this is particularly a statistical tool that is used to measure a country's overall achievement in its social and economic dimensions. So what we are really talking about is here. Fiancé Mulechita as a country, abantu. Fiancé Mulechita as ubuteko. Ni impact in shikwete pabantu. And impact fiba measured by the social, economic dimensions of a country. And we use in that measurement or statistical criteria, we usually use 3 constructs and they are based on 3 categories. It's the health of the people, the level of education attainment, and the standards of living. So, takwaba economic development iba measured pa namba ya misebo mwakulire mukongolesha machinishi. Takwaba economic development iba measured pa fikulu mwakulire or pa makwebo mwachitile or anything like that. Economic development iba measured muri impact ya fintu mulechita pamikalile ya abantu. Health ya abantu. How do we measure health ya abantu? Health ya abantu mu business na economics tuchita measure health ya abantu kubonfya life expectancy. Mushe muchalo chenu abantu balekota nga balefu abayi cheni chita muri economic development. And 2, the level of education attainment. Kale kwale bati mupelele pa standard 6, and standard 6 in sub-Saharan Africa was a big thing. Shinoshiku, tufuletu wapima abele kuma college, napo bapelele ni pesa. The level of education attainment is a critical aspect of economic development, particularly those who have finished post-college education. We have to measure that in proportion to the population. That's a variable. And the standard of living is measured by the income per capita, national income per capita. Indalama mu abale bomba, bafola mashinga. Nga bale follow tunyampuku. Bale follow tunyampuku, Dr. Bab. Nishita mkwete economic development. Tuwonfia indalama abantu bale fola. Nga bale fola kwa kasari yaka londoloeke. Nishi tuwakwata measurement. So nga tuwawa yabula yonsi yabili. Elo tuwachita rank ama countries. People's health is measured by life expectancy as an indicator. Education is measured by the years in post-secondary school. And the standard of living is measured as a per capita income. Nombanga mwaya kuiba United Nations, mwaya sangati ba Zambia pa fialo 180. Tuwaba pa 149. Okay, tatuwaba kumuchila. But tatwaba na pakati, twaba in the bottom half. That is what our position is in relation to economic development, and the most common measure, iyo tubonfya, ukuchita measure economic development muchalo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kasonso. I'll pass on next to Patrick to ask the next question. Ididi ashinari shupa na mwishwa tukuma Facebook kulinefya kutila tipako sukusofuila wakwata degree. So let me submit kuliba Patrick to ask.
Thank you, Dr. Bab. Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Kasonso, that was fantastic. Well, Barbara, in terms of finance, you might not be good, but in terms of medicine, we can be group D also. So don't call yourself group D. You are intelligent. For somebody to be a doctor, you must be intelligent. But Dr. Kasonso,
you know, when you're talking to people, have you seen the picture where Bahaka in the Islam of Bali knelt down to speak to a young girl? That's a symbol of trying to go down to the level of that child so you understand each other.
Yeah.
So when I say group D, is to help out somebody who's actually a group D to come and get on board and say, we're not experts in everything. There's so many things that I don't know.
Yeah.
That they may also know. You never know. Bambibadi spoke with pika, Shai spoke with pika in Ishiria.
Chikanda.
Hey, yo ine, Shai spoke with pika Chikanda yonse ila pata mumpoto no fuma mumpoto. Kwani ba my expert. So that's that. Let me submit so that Patrick goes to the next question.
So, Dr. Kasonso, before I ask you the next question, I just wanted to follow up on the question that Barbara asked you. Very, very intelligent question. Very good question. Dr. Kasonso, what you're saying, we are sitting on, say, 149 on the HDI, index. Dr. Kasonso, what differentiates Fiancial, by the way, corruption. when you look at other countries, apart from corruption, which was rife in the last government, and which this government is fighting. And we are happy what this government is fighting. We know that the previous government, they are doing everything to distract this government, but this government is serious about fighting corruption. Dr. Kasonso, do you think corruption hinders economic development? And also, what makes those countries which have got good economies, HDI, good per capita income, good GDP, what makes them stand out? Why are we so behind? Despite having resources, copper and many other things. Thank you, Kasonso.
Thank you. That's a great question, Patrick. Dr. Bob said something very important that I heard from a very wise man. He said that we are all idiots, just on different subjects. So yeah, we don't assume to have expertise on everything, but on certain things that we have had the grace of God, we can seem to know something that's going on. So something that is going on, yes, it is true, Patrick, that if you cut that United Nations group, which I hope we can talk further about when we talk about the court, the Financial Crimes Court, is that, most nations in the half of that list, they struggle with system corruption. And system corruption as a way in which it juxtaposes or it removes the correct balance of where life should be expected and of where the means of production or economic resources should be distributed. We spoke about this actually in the first show. And if our viewers can go back to Percy's one-on-one with Dr. Kasonso, we spoke about it in the first show, the impact of corruption on business. It distorts prices, it distorts the costs of output, and it distorts the level at which services are going to be received by the people. So we have to be able to have a correct understanding of the nature of economic development for us to have this multidimensional, holistic view as the people of Zambia, so that we know, using ipinda de akulubemba takachila kambushi kasengulapo kekele. The purpose why we are flooding all this information is that akachila kambushi mayo kale sengulapo kekele kumshumweso. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Dr. Kasonso. The next question I'll ask you, Kasonso. We're talking about economic development still. Mm-hmm. Dr. Kasonso, who are the key players in the economic development process? And what do they do? Or what do we expect them to do?
Oh, that is a very important question. During the last regime, nale monaba MP vale ya commission okuyaba bantu ati bena ba MP palo hapo eba kabula economic development bakatwale ku bantu. And that brought me a sobering view of life, because bena nga bangira mu buteko inchito yabo tekutwala development ku bantu uteko nchito yabo kuyachita harness ukukolonganya development equity abantu. Now, this understanding is revolutionary in the world of economics. Why? Because economics, we say, is a process in which we create the assets that are going to create the common good. And because economics involves the creation of wealth, we have to focus on three most important key players. And the first of those, of the key players, are the people called inventors. That's the first group. The first people are called inventors. And the second people are called entrepreneurs. And the third class of people who are very critical to that process are called capitalists. So now, what do inventors do? Inventors produce ideas. So, kula kulinangu mwaya kwa shangombo kukula kumpepi na kumungu. When you go and hang out with those people there, they will have some ideas of what could change and create better opportunities for that community. Those people who have ideas are called inventors, and they are key players. In our culture in Zambia, we have not yet learned to harness the ingeniousness of inventors. People with ideas right there where they are. And the second category are entrepreneurs. Now, entrepreneurs get things done. An idea or a scientific principle is not by itself of any importance or for any economic practice. But so is the creation of economic, so is the creation of technology. It's outside the domain of the entrepreneur. But the identification and exploitation of such opportunities, also called innovation, is what distinguishes an entrepreneur. In other words, an entrepreneur is a person who organizes the people's ideas into a process or a system that will deliver a product or a service. So we have the inventor, the generator of the ideas, and then we have the entrepreneur, and then we have the final one is called the capitalist. The capitalist is the group of people who finance entrepreneurial ventures. So the critical people are the inventors, the entrepreneurs, and the capitalists. Sometimes it can be one person in those three categories. Sometimes it can be two people on a particular concept. But in most cases, there are three separate categories of people. So these are the people who are usually involved. So, for example, if you take over 25.7 million kwacha, wabika constituency. Ovuteko, bulechita act as a capitalist. Bulechita provide indalama. What is the government asking with that money? Yes, spend it on your needs. That is a part of it. But most importantly, what the government is asking is, am I inventors, am I produce some ideas? Now my entrepreneurs, am I engaged organize enterprise? Let them come together and use that resource to create economic development from there. Because economic development is the creation of assets, creation of whether assets are financial or social, that will benefit more people, that will create employment, and that will do that. So, Bachelor of Here, I'm a key players, more economic development process, my inventors, by entrepreneur, now capitalist. About to provide capital.
That was fantastic, Kasonso, Dr. Kasonso. Now, before I go to the next question, actually it was supposed to be about Barbara, but technical issues, we've lost Barbara. Hope she'll come back. Before I could ask you the next question, Kasonso, just a simple question: do we have those three components you've mentioned, the inventor, the inventors, the entrepreneurs, and the capitalists? Do we have all those three in Zambia? And if we had them before, what if we've had them, what has prevented us from developing? Or if we don't have, what should be the government do to create an environment where we can have those three components, those key players, so that we can develop? Thank you.
Thank you, Bachelor. The role of government is very important, Bachelor. You know, from time to time in the history of our country, we've had them. And from time to time, we have not had them. But those three categories of key players appear in situation-specific enterprise opportunities. So the role of government is to, during the MMD government, you remember they used to tell us that the role of government for business is to create an enabling environment. And somehow, nobody defined what the enabling environment should be, what components of the enabling environment should be on the ground. The government, in doing its job in relation to economic development, economic development can take place in an organic nature if the government creates opportunities and enhances that process of economic development. The inventors will have more opportunities and incentives to produce the ideas. The entrepreneurs can organize and run thriving enterprise from small to medium-sized enterprise, as well as large corporations. The capitalists will perceive opportunities, receive a good return on their investments, and therefore entice. So now, there are six specific things that anchors government's responsibilities. Ubuteko, wakwatama responsibilities, ayengi. But in relation to making sure that people produce a product that can bring common good to any specific location, the first thing relates to profits, Bachelor. Government should safeguard the profitability and competitiveness of business enterprise operating within the economy. Efforts such as minimizing operating costs or those reduction efforts, reduction in all of that. Government should make sure that people who are entering business enterprise are able to make a profit. If more people are entering in a particular industry cannot make a profit, that is the problem of government. But if few people are making losses and the majority are making profits, then it's not a problem of government. So government should making sure that the people operating in a particular sector, particular industry or value chain or supply chain are able to make a profit. For example, you can build a product at a higher cost, but somebody from another country has produced it at a lower cost, and then you come and compete in the same market. Then those people are able to sell that product, and your product goes not sold. You have to auction it at a lower than cost price, and then you make a loss. Government should protect business enterprise to make a profit. 2, capital. Government should ensure business enterprise have access to low-cost capital, and there are opportunities for investors to get a good return on their investments. So, ubuteko eka chema mukalamba abantu nga balefa capital ya business. Okay, kuti bako buteko, but iringi buteko teti bukwate. But ubuteko furi watsa create environment ya kwe bati. Bale aba kwete low cost capital. Ama sources ya low cost capital yali available mu economy. Number 3, it has to do with credit. Government should ensure the availability and affordability of credit facilities in the business environment. Running the economy on a cash basis alone leads to lost opportunities for business expansion and economic growth. Another one has to do with interest. Government has a role to play in regulating interest rates. High interest rates restricts business activity. And also the bigger issue is the business cycle. On aggregate, the economy itself is going to have times when it's expanding and when it's shrinking. Government has to be able to be ready to make investments in the economy in periods when it's shrinking and lay off their hands when the economy is expanding, managing the business cycle. And now the big one in the house is regulation, creating rules and enforcement of laws that are pro-business.
Dr. Kasonso, you've actually answered my next question, because my next question I wanted to ask you was, what is the role of the government in economic development? And you've answered my question in advance. And yeah, so you've explained it properly, because you're right. You know, when the MMD government came in power, you see that, you know, Ronald Penzak standing and say the role of the government is to create an environment conducive, you know, for job creation, you know, but they didn't explain that. And a lot of people didn't understand, and you've explained it. Because Kasonso, in a lot of countries, like in Zambia now, we've got the Ministry of SME, which a lot of countries have, and government comes in and facilitate loans, give grants, and for small businesses, because they know that the bedrock of every economy is small businesses, the SMEs, those organizations that employ 50 to 250 people. And then Kasonso, we've got the Ministry of Science and Technology. And then, so Kasonso, these two ministries are very, very important. How can the government use these two ministries? I'll ask you two questions. Does the president need a science and technology advisor? And then two, how can the science and technology plus the SME ministry can be used in Zambia to develop our economy? Because if you look at all over the world, the tech business, science, investment in research. We have a research center in Zambia. We have investment in research. So how can the government do that to propel our economy?
Thank you so much, Watirufia, for that question. We do have enough ministries and the infrastructure to be able to institute economic development that is based on technology and innovation. Remember, we said there are three key players. We said the inventor, the entrepreneur, and who?
Capitalist.
The capitalist. So when you talk about technology, you are talking about innovation. So that is the domain of the entrepreneur. I like your idea of an advisor on technology. Yeah, but the new Ministry of Technology has a permanent secretary who is an expert in technology. So perhaps some of those skills can be harnessed there. Provided they come up with a robust technology platform. The permanent secretary there also is a new PhD. The new PhDs have one plus that I like: exposure to recent technologies. I like that about them. But we have to go beyond that and look for those technologies that can help us enhance the welfare of our people. What type of internet are we going to have in the nation? How can we reduce on the cost of internet so that the people can have access to that? So I think also the idea of research, Watirufia, who conducts research in the UK or in the United States?
Universities.
It's the universities. So what we are saying is the government must invest in research centers at universities. And until we see that, the harnessing of research and innovation is far-fetched, But if we, comparative analysis teaches us that, you compare certain factors from other places and you can compare apples and oranges and you can see what you can develop. research centers at places of learning is very important. But if you try and put together a group of PhDs in Zambia, some schooled in the Far East, some schooled in Europe, some schooled in the West, some schooled in the South, you tend to have intellectual boxing matches in academic departments. And those politics are global. But what you have to have is specialized research centers based on specialized trainings and connections that specific researchers have. So for instance, if you have the hub of technology based on 5G, you put people who have specific skills in research in 5G and have published work on that together to collaborate and even bring in other researchers. You just don't bring in researchers from everywhere else to be grouped together. So we need research, Patrick, and research can lead us there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kasonso. But Barbara, welcome back. Dr. Kasonso, we're going to go into the second topic of today. The newly launched Economic and Financial Crimes Court in Zambia. Listen to Dr. Kasonso. Not long ago, our president was in parliament and he promised us Zambians that he will soon introduce the fast track court, which has been done now. I think it was last week, Chief Justice Malila introduced the newly launched Economic and Financial Crimes Court.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. You know, the statutory instrument was signed on January the 7th. I'm correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. To establish an Economic and Financial Crimes Division of the High Court with the purpose of handling appeals from its subordinate courts. I've got a question by Kasonso. I've got two questions, actually. What can we expect from the EFCC? That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, what do you think are the critical skills required of expert witnesses to practice in the Economic and Financial Crimes Court? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you know, one thing I am very proud of this president is he's a very 21st century type of a president. You know, I was here in the United States when Barack Obama became president. And if you listen to his speech in Iowa, he mentioned 4 things that he was going to do as president of the United States. By the first 4 years, he had fulfilled all of those 4, and the second 4 he was just consolidating and building on that. This president is a type of a person who takes his politics a little bit more seriously, that if he lays a promise to the people, he is going to go back in the background and say, hey, how am I going to do this? So what we have seen is that what Chief Justice Malila did last week is actually a fulfillment of a political promise that the president spoke about in the parliament when he opened it, that he wanted courts that are going to speed up the processing of certain type of cases so that they can be disposed of. So we have seen that the government has created this effort of the Economic and Financial Crimes Court. And I think what we can expect from that court are many things, but let me just spell out 3 things. Number 1, we are going to expect expedited litigation. So ngana ukwata imilandu iri related kundalama iri milandu yakulaenda kubwangu, because there's a specialized division within the High Court that can handle those. And secondly, we will see the emerging of practice and job opportunities for fraud examiners and forensic accountants. You know, I've been several years away when I was in Zambia as a young accountant, but even then, I have not seen a lot of fraud examiners and forensic accountants in practice. I think this court presents a perfect opportunity to have fraud examiners and forensic accountants increase more, both to support the litigation and also to defend those who are accused. And the third expectation that we can have is that there should be a need for curriculum revisions for law and accountancy training programs. Which train lawyers, where now research and teaching has reached when it comes to prosecuting financial crimes. So I see opportunities for that. Now, the second thing you talked about are the critical skills. This is a very good question. And the answer is actually one of my areas of my postgraduate specialization in the PhD Advanced Accounting. It's called Advanced Forensic Accounting Theory and Practice. Now, whether on the side of the prosecution or on the defense side, the Economic and Financial Crimes Court, in the Financial Crimes Court, the critical skills that will be required will be of that of a forensic accountant. Now, what is forensic accounting? Forensic accounting is a specialized area of accounting, a very challenging one for that matter. Forensic accountant investigates incidents of fraud. In politics, we come and say, hey, they did fraud and stuff like that, and we don't know how to get to it. But the forensic accountant has the requisite skills to investigate incidents of fraud, bribery, money laundering. They get some money, which we call proceeds of crime, and they give it to an aunt who goes and builds 10 houses in their name. The forensic accountant can find that money. We were trained to how to do that. So I see that court as an opportunity for practicing in that area. And also the embezzlements by analyzing financial records and transactions and tracing assets and more. So, kuti twakumona iva salary wa folele ni yapa. Noro wa folele salary ni. I salary yove. Yali pila renti, twakakileta yali pila nenganda. Twamona na pali Percy pyo yali pila kona bankongole. Noro pia lovero atsashani luapwa. But the same month, walesa in a contract, ya kuchita own property, ili worth it, 7 times worth your salary. So we will get that, connect the dots, put the numbers on, and figure out how much money you had that month, and question you about your sources. But based on the trail of money connected to your name, we can even find your sources, the days you got the money, how you spend it, and why you spend it, where you spend it. So when we take you to that court, we will appear as an expert witness on behalf of the government. Or if the government is falsely accusing you, we will appear on your behalf as your expert witness to justify that this really money came from your Kantemba in Shangombo, that grocery really miraculously provided some money. If that, or that's what we did. So what we're trying to say here is, there is a new area of practice that will emerge, and I'll encourage young people to enroll for accounting programs and specialize in fraud examination and money laundering. It's a growing area, and it's a robust area of practice in the global economy. If it's here in the United States, it's a biggie.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Kasonso. That's absolutely interesting and brilliant. So going to you, Patrick, what do you think? Is it the right time to launch the EFCC? Is there like a better time? Is that something that should come in the future? Is this the right time for us to have it? Because there are so many sectors out there. Some are even saying that maybe corruption is a perceived thing. Some are thinking it's a persecutory thing. There's just so much going on out there. What is your views on what do you think about is it the right time for it to happen?
Yes, Barbara. Yeah, to start with, we all joined the struggle to liberate Zambia because of the corruption that we saw in the last 10 years or so. And our president promised that when he last went to parliament, that he was going to introduce this court. And to me, it was the best thing our president has done, in that obviously courts are so busy, it takes time to prosecute. And by introducing this court, then which means this court will be given resources, enough resources, financial resources, to fight the crime. Because remember when Monawasa was fighting the crime, the economic crimes, there was no such courts. And not only that, by introducing this court, then they're gonna find people with specific skills, like what Dr Kasonso mentioned, with specific skills to investigate such kind of crimes. And Dr Kasonso has mentioned they will be using forensic accountants, forensic investigators, and different experts. And the other thing is, it's going to be, this is a fast track court. So we've got a court, Barbara, only dealing with economic crimes. We don't have a court that, so it will specialization. And then once you specialize, you're doing the same thing, they're going to do it better. Yeah. And then, Barbara, corruption, we always talk about this. And corruption makes my heart bleed, especially what happened in Zambia in the last 10 years. And Dr. Kasonso also mentioned about the countries that are in the bottom, ranking of the HDI, are those countries where there is systematic corruption. So corruption, Barbara, is a cancer, is deadly. It's even worse than cancer. Some cancers can be cured. Corruption is deadly. If you don't deal with it head on, like what our president is doing, it can destroy a nation. And we had a government and the clique of people, leaders who call themselves leaders, who are not leaders, who thought it was normal. They were entitled to that. They had a sense of entitlement. And then when President Hakainde comes and say, I'm fighting Wakabolala, and they start calling him Kabolala also. And then they start saying we are persecuted because Tribaku North or Tribaku Eastern Province. That's not true. And then we bring somebody here who is an MP. Last week, you remember, who ran away. This person was saying that there was no corruption in Zambia. It was just a perception. It's unbelievable. I asked her a question, Barbara. So you tell me, Shirendarama Tesha corruption. Bakan. This is a person who is an MP. So you saw, Barbara, how people who benefited in corruption behave. That's an MP. But Barbara, if you remember, that lady, I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want to promote her. She says when she stood in 2016, she was bankroled by PF. So you see how corrupt this regime was. They had an MP, but they go and corrupt another candidate from another party to divide the votes. That's how they work. Everything about PF was corruption. So now the president says, no, that corruption was too much. I'm going to introduce a court, a fast-track court, which has never happened in Zambia, which is going to look at these cases one by one. And thank God, the president has appointed Mrs. Moyo, who was at FIC. You know, that lady, year after year, she kept on producing reports. And those reports, damning reports, there was so much money laundering in there. And what happens? Somebody was sitting on them. You know, at one point, Dr. Kasonso was saying, in the UK, an organization like FIC, they've got the powers to prosecute. Even ZRA, I don't know if ZRA has got powers to prosecute. They've got, so if the law had given Mrs. Moyo, when she was at FIC, to prosecute, a lot of people would have been prosecuted. But again, we were living in an environment where there was so much corruption. You would have been frustrated. So now, Dr. Kasonso, all those fouls, they will start now going to that court. They will start going now to the prosecutors and start prosecuting. And Dr. Kasonso, if we don't fight corruption now, Zambians won't know that corruption is bad. The only way we can stop corruption is to prosecute those criminals. We are not persecuting them, we are prosecuting them. There's a difference. And once those people are prosecuted, it will deter such kind of corruption to continue in future. People Kasonso.
No.
You know?
Dr. Bob.
Patrick, I just wanted to add something. I know, what do you think about the way people understand? Because from reading between the lines from the same guest that we had that exited unceremoniously, she's gone on to post to say that the president said that we should first investigate somebody till the end and then prosecute them. So there's a certain misunderstanding of what happens when you have committed a crime. So maybe people need to be taught that the president was not saying that you're accused of committing a crime. No one speaks to you, no one talks to you until one day they come and call you with in a limousine, come and pick you up to go and ask you after they've poured champagne for you to ask you whether you've committed a crime. That's not how it works. What do you think? There's a certain misunderstanding, and it's a shame because people claim Zambia is a Christian nation. If we are Christians, these are things that should hurt us, because ultimately that money is stopping somebody from getting an education. When I mentioned this, these are the things that she was so upset about. She thought I was insulting her, but I wasn't. I was saying corrupt money stops people from getting an education. Corrupt money stops money from going into the hospitals. You know, when you read St. Athanasius, from 300 and something, you know, as a Catholic, I like reading all these Office of Readings. He said, human beings should operate like a choir, you know, a choir of music.
Yeah.
Adults, men are singing with their voices, women are singing with their voices, children are singing with their voices, and then they perform a perfect sound of music. So each person plays their own role. The minute we stop that, which is corruption, that whole harmony is destroyed. So that means we're not developing. What do you think, Patrick Kasonso, about teaching people about understanding the real meaning of, you know, the cost of corruption, I submit?
So let me just say something before you come in. Barbara, corruption is a huge cost to the government. Accountants and economists, I don't know, we call it an opportunity cost. It's a foregone cost. It's a benefit. It's something that would have benefited the people, and then it's gone to some people. It's wasted. It's gone. So here is the money the government was supposed to use to buy medication, sponsor students at university, pay the old people, pay the pensioner. It goes into a politician's pocket. and that politician goes and builds 49 houses or 20 houses. So that's what corruption does, Barbara. But the question, Barbara, you remember last time I mentioned that in the last 10 years, I've been so disappointed. People were saying, no, we want Bill 10 because it talks about Zambia as a Christian nation. But Barbara, Dr Kasonso, we live in countries which are not called Christian nations. And people don't go to church. I work with people who deal with millions and millions of pounds, if not billions. They're not Christians, but they are very honest. So now we come to Zambia. Somebody is saying Zambia as a Christian nation, let's pray on the 18th of October, but people are stealing. And then what surprised me, Barbara, is my fellow Pentecostal church members, pastors, are the ones who are in the forefront, calling that 18th October day of prayer and fasting. But there was no 18th of October where somebody mentioned, let's pray about corruption, which is the most dangerous cancer, demon in our country. Nobody mentioned that because they were scared, because they were also participants. They also partook of the cake of that corruption. So it's really, really sad. And we're going to support this president. We are not going to stop about this president is doing the right thing, but the criminals don't like it. And there's nothing that is going to stop our president to fight corruption. Over to you, Kasonso.
Thank you, Dr. Barb. That's a brilliant question. And let me just probably also offer my closing remarks because we've run out of time here. Corruption hinders economic development. We've been discussing economic development today at length, who is involved and what. Can you imagine in all of that, you affix in corrupt elements? What is it going to do? Corruption is going to reduce foreign direct and domestic investments. Abantu abakwatendalama balatina okubika mundalama mufintunga tashaka bwere. Corruption increases inequality and poverty because corruption concentrates resources in a small group of people and fails to distribute the money into the value chain of the production sector. It raises the number of freeloaders, renters, and free riders in the economy. It distorts and exploits public investments. And our government very focused into and it reduces public revenues. So because of that, the fight against corruption should be waged as part of our system of government, and we must applaud our government and the Chief Justice for introducing the Economic and Financial Crimes Court to prosecute all those who are found wanting in this arena. And we call upon the professionals to get extra skills to be able to do and prosecute these people successfully. This republic, on the promise of independence on which it stands, it shall move forward and it shall be strong and it shall prosper. And it shall prosper on the principle that the common good of the people of Zambia shall be carried forward, and that flag, like a noble eagle, shall fly over all of us, and Zambia shall be economically free and prosperous. Thank you, my colleagues, for this interview and program, and it has been fantastic to share this moment with you both. Over to the both of you.
Yeah, Dr. Kasonso, before you go, we're gonna do something different. I've got one question. Some viewers are asking. You know, before you go, it's a very important question. What's the difference? The way Mwanawasa fought corruption and the way this government is fighting corruption. Before you go, and I'll allow Barbara to say something, but that question, people are asking it.
Thank you so much for that question. And I believe that the intentions of President Mwanawasa were good, but the strategy was a fiasco. as an accountant, I look at the money he spent in the fight against corruption against the money he retrieved from his corruption fight. And when I look at that, I think that the corruption was the money he spent, not the money he recovered. So what was the missing link there? The missing link from that fight was a structured institutional approach. He appoints a bunch of lawyers who are dragging cases and finding limitations, and who probably had even a skill set with serious limitations of finding the money where they could find it. Because I am 100% sure that in their skill set, there was nothing to do with forensic accounting. And I look at their portfolio, they didn't have any forensic accountant. And, you know, creating a global network of such professionals who can practice and testify in the courts of law abroad. And at some point, they had to use a government structure to bring a judge from somewhere to come and rule over here, and there were jurisdictional issues. It was just a mess. So when you're fighting corruption, it's best to be deliberate, and especially deliberate. So the whole idea of having a court means that the fight against corruption will be, from this day forward, ongoing. You will not always have to come back and say, hey, the people were governing for 7 years. They bought a fire truck for $250,000, but they bought it for $1 million. Let's go out and investigate them. You will not always have to go back. There will always be a court where you can take them. There will always be a record contemporaneous with what they did in that particular time. So I think this current approach is a little bit more hopeful, and the using of existing government institutions like the Anti-Corruption Commission, the financial
intelligence center,
the financial
intelligence center,
which wasn't there during Mwanawasa. Those are helpful institutions. I hope they can provide them with enough motivation and resources. Then they can prevent this pilferage of resources. But they also have to be mindful that we have this cultural deficit, that financial resources gained in a dubious manner are legitimate. That is a cultural deficit we have, and we are going up against a very big headwind, because the culture we live in thinks that such money is okay, and the person who is being prosecuted for or having houses full built from money they didn't earn is being persecuted. That is not correct.
Yeah, before we close, Barbara, any closing remarks before I make mine and close the program?
Thank you so much, Patrick and Professor Kasonso. It's been a brilliant show, and it's something I believe we'll be talking on more over the coming of the weeks and days and years, because we need to teach our society what is corruption. And not only that, we also have to respect one another, especially the people that are in position of power, whether it's an MP, whether it's a minister. You know, my MP in the area where I live, I see her in the morning with a little stick picking papers. She actually looks so scared, like she's more terrified to be an MP than me. Whereas in our communities, the other way around, our MPs expect to come on our platforms. They want us to treat them like they're little gods, or that, because our society is full of poor people. So if you're feeling about abantu, baba fuike ftenge, babe myamumulu, people start thinking that they're special, but you're not special. Like the president said, you're a servant. The minute we learn servanthood, which is biblical in the first place, the minute we learn servanthood, the minute we learn to love one another, you know, the minute you think this could be my child, you know, we are not children, all of us. Some people will come on our platform and they'll think we are mothers, we are grandmothers. My friend told me graduate. I was at my daughter's graduation this weekend.
Amen.
We are all grown-ups. So
Yes.
we have to respect one another and accept that, starting from me, if we accept that Nigerian is contribute to corruption, let me educate my son, let me educate my children, my teachers, the local people that I work with. that Fiancial tokulipira taxi driver, I mean ukulipira bakapokolo lefo kia bwangu bakuchita stop for no reason. Ulefo kupoka passport, ulefo you're traveling within 2 days for no reason on independent so much. All that costs is part of corruption that we all have to learn. That's why nama politician abalesa kama MP first mfile mwa tuchindika efe mweba bombela efe muliba bomfi beso mfile mwa tuchindika not to be some people pretend that you're above the law. No, that's the way we'll fight corruption, when we respect one another. But my MPs from UK bala lot paper tabakwata to inena alikwata jako na alikwata shani na bashukuru bakwe bali bene ba Bank of Zambia ba Barclays. So it's not a one thing or the other. We just have to respect one another. I submit.
Thank you so much, Barbara Kasonso. That was fantastic. Myself, Barbara and Kasonso, my advice to fellow Zambians: let's support our president in his fight against corruption. Because if you don't fight corruption today, corruption is it's a cancer. It's gonna spread so fast and destroy our country. And then our radio stations, buying the radio stations, paying a lot of money, thinking they are propaganda, people will buy it. Zambians, don't buy that propaganda. Nobody is persecuting anybody. This government is prosecuting people who stole the money. They are not going after, people who didn't steal. So let's support this government. Let's get our money back. And Kasonso, my prayer is that Kukabama reforms Zambia, so that organizations like FIC, they are given enough power to prosecute. But ZRA, they are given enough power to prosecute. So that, and Kasonso, the other thing is I wanted to mention is, I'm glad that this Financial Crimes Court, it's under the Forfeiture Law Act, which is most of these cases are going to be prosecuted civilly, not criminally. So, so what the government will be doing is they will be going and say, Kasonso, we've got a file here. Mwalikwata 70 houses. Then come and claim those houses. Come and prove that. In the UK, Kasonso, what the government does is, under the lifestyle audit, the first place they katako the tax. They go to the tax office and say, let's see how much Kasonso paid tax. Because Kasonso barishta now assets in the last 10 years worth 50 million pounds.
But Muiravo Fiancial Kasonso in Veni, because Kasonso Teba Pupu, Teba Techa Msango. Okay, take over Virginia, Nabaya ICP on Sevapoka. So
okay, and so example is Mr. J has got assets worth 50 million. You know the starting point Kasonso, tax office.
Yeah, we know.
No kia checking, Kasonso vali pile shinga tax. Then wasanga Kasonso vali pile 500,000 tax. Chakana. So I think our government should give more powers to the taxman to prosecute. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, our viewers all over the world. This was another presentation of Bakwetu TV with Dr. Kasonso and my co-host, Dr. Barbara Chanda. Thank you so much. Once again, God bless Zambia. Bye for now.